Chiney, what was your reaction seeing what happened last night at the Garden and then seeing Fizz come out this morning and be like, oh, I'm going to be okay?
Yeah.
Nothing to see here?
If I'm a player in that locker room, I have a lot of questions just because you don't want that type of transitional energy going around your team, especially when you're fighting for wins. And I think Woj's point was right, spot on the money. Like, if you think about playing on the road, there are no expectations there, really. You're going to go out there and play hard. And it's not been a question of whether the Knicks are playing hard, because I think a lot of guys are. Marcus Morris is leading the team in scoring. Julius Randle is doing what he is doing. You know, I know he had 20 points per game last year, but this year he's 15 or so. Kevin Knox, you know, double figures. And RJ Barrett is doing his best to try to bring life to this franchise. It's not necessarily about playing hard, it's about playing well. And I think balance is the issue, but you can't point to the roster and say this is all Coach Fizdale's fault, because he's only been there 2 years. This is something that you, like, in the city of New York, you can point to across the city and say, all right, they've been building something and there's fruition from what they're building. I don't think it's all on the coach, it's decision making. Again, everyone's going to have the eyes on the Garden when Kristaps comes back, and I think that's the issue here. They're trying to get ahead of a situation instead of stay behind it, and it's unfair to the players.
Yeah, the weird thing here, there's a lot of weird things, right? Start with 10 games in, you feel the need to have any sort of State of the Union address about your team, regardless whether they're 0-10, 10-0, to do that. Then you're doing it after the game. Typically a time where tempers are flared or whatever. If you were going to do that, wouldn't you wait till the next day to make some sort of statement like that? 3, you're doing it while the coach is still in the locker room talking to the team. So obviously you haven't consulted with him about expectations or anything like that. And so when I see Steve Mills, who's been in the NBA forever, and I see Scott Perry, who's been in the NBA forever, do something that is so out of the ordinary, the only thing that I can do connecting the dots is say they were compelled to do so.
So this is, I asked our producers to put this together today. This is everyone's tenure with the Knicks, right? Obviously, Fizz, the most recent, just got there compared to the other two. Steve Mills was during the Phil Jackson era, right? When we talk about, oh, it's different since Phil Jackson came, it's different with Scott Perry. Since Phil Jackson left, it's different with Scott Perry, not different with Steve Mills. And the team, you can think about what the team's record has been over that time. You see the percentages there.
Right. So,
it's hard for me to say this is David Fizdale's fault.
But the point being, even if it was Fizz's fault, that's not how you handle it. And these are not two neophytes. They're not guys who came from Wall Street and we're trying our hand at this NBA thing. These are NBA guys. So to see those guys do that, I feel like that comes when you are under pressure from someone else, someone who controls your destiny. I'm not naming names. I'm just saying that's not the way that you behave. Now, you talk about the roster. Unbalanced, not only in terms of position, but also a lot of players of similar talent level. So it's very hard to create clear defined roles. Chiney, if you walked in the locker room and you say, I'm the best player here, but then there are like 7 other guys who think the same thing and can legitimately do so because the talent level is all the same, it makes it harder to kind of put together some structure. And then finally, I can't leave Fizz off the hook as well because he's kind of done things with the lineups. You know, some of it is injury-driven, but some of it seems like there's not a lot of consistency.
And it affects players' confidence.
Right. From day to day where I don't know where I stand in the coach's eyes. All of this is to say it's a bad situation. I don't think there's any one person to blame other than...
I'm
not going to name names, but just keep going upstairs.
You're talking about ownership there.
Oh, yeah.
Right, okay. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.